The Artemis glided silently through the contested border sector, its hull reflecting the distant light of Helios 7. Lieutenant Mara Sterling sat in the cockpit, her eyes fixed on the sensor readings that flickered across the holographic display. This region had become a no-man's land, a dangerous corridor where human and Velari territories overlapped, and where pirate raids had become increasingly common. "Anything on the scopes, Lieutenant?" Captain Ree's voice crackled through the comm. "Nothing yet, sir," Mara replied, adjusting the sensors to scan the shadowed region near the gas giant. "Wait," she leaned forward, her breath catching as a new reading appeared on her screen. "I'm picking up a signature. Looks like a drifting vessel. Velari design." "Refugees?" Ree asked, his voice tense. "Possibly. Hull's been breached. Life support systems are failing." Mara's fingers flew across the controls, enhancing the scan. "There's something else. I'm detecting a biometric signature. Faint, but present." "Survivors?" Ree's voice dropped an octave. "We have orders to avoid prolonged rescue missions. Sterling, pirates have been active in this sector." Mara's jaw tightened. "With all due respect, sir, we can't just leave them. Protocol states." "I know the protocol," Ree interrupted. "But our resources are limited, and our primary objective is to secure the trade routes." Mara stared at the faint biometric signature pulsing on her screen. One life, hanging by a thread. "Sir, I'm requesting permission to dock and investigate. In and out, 15 minutes max." A heavy sigh came through the comm. 15 minutes, Sterling. If you encounter any resistance or if pirates appear on our scopes, you aboard immediately. Understood?" "Understood, sir." Mara was already rising from her seat, heading toward the EVA preparation chamber. "Thank you." Within minutes, Mara had donned her EVA suit, checking each seal meticulously. The oxygen levels showed full capacity, 3 hours of breathable air, more than enough for a quick reconnaissance mission. As she stepped into the airlock, she felt the familiar flutter of anticipation in her stomach. This was why she had joined the rescue division, to save lives, not to blindly follow strategic objectives that left the vulnerable to die in the cold void of space. The Artemis docked with the derelict freighter, with a gentle shudder. As the airlock cycled, Mara activated her helmet lights and drew her standard-issue stunner. The freight's main corridor greeted her with eerie silence. Emergency lights flickered weakly, casting long shadows across the metal walls. Debris floated in the zero-gravity sections, personal belongings, equipment, all evidence of lives disrupted. "I'm aboard," Mara reported through her comm. Proceeding to the source of the biometric signature, her scanner led her deeper into the vessel, past sealed doorways and darkened chambers. The air was thin here, contaminated by vacuum exposure. Finally, she reached a sealed chamber near the ship's core. The door was jammed, only partially functional. "I've located a sealed chamber," she reported. "Attempting to access now." Mara wedged her tools into the narrow gap, leveraging her body weight against the metal. With a groan, the door slid open just enough for her to squeeze through. The chamber beyond was small, a life support pod designed for emergency use. And there, strapped to a failing life support system, was a tiny Velari girl. Mara's heart constricted at the sight. The child couldn't have been more than 6 years old. Her luminescent eyes were half closed, her chest rising and falling in shallow, desperate gasps. The oxygen levels in the chamber were critically low. Without intervention, the girl would suffocate within minutes. "I've found a survivor," Mara reported, her voice tight. "A child. Velari. She's in critical condition. Oxygen deprivation." "Understood," Ree responded. "Can you stabilize her for transport?" Mara checked the pod systems. "Negative. Life support is failing. She's gasping for air." She hesitated, watching the child struggle for breath. In that moment, everything else faded away. The mission parameters, the time constraints, the pirate threat. All that mattered was the tiny life before her. With steady hands, Mara reached up and unsealed her helmet. The contaminated air of the chamber hit her lungs like fire, but she ignored the burning sensation. She removed her oxygen mask and carefully secured it over the alien child's face. "Sterling, what are you doing?" Ree's voice was sharp with alarm. "Your suit readings show your helmet's been removed." "The girl needs oxygen," Mara replied, watching as the child's breathing began to stabilize. "I've given her my mask." "That's against protocol. Get your mask back on and extract immediately." "Negative, sir. She won't survive without it." Mara unstrapped the child from the life support system, cradling the small body against her chest. "I'm bringing her out now." The child's eyes fluttered open, luminescent irises fixing on Mara's face. There was fear there, but also a desperate hope. Mara managed a smile despite the thinning air in her lungs. "It's okay," she whispered. "I'm going to get you out of here." Mara carried the child through the corridor, fighting the growing lightheadedness that threatened to overwhelm her. The ship's environment was deteriorating rapidly, making each step a challenge. Floating debris cluttered her path, and severed conduits spewed sparks into the recycled air. She had almost reached the airlock when her scanner beeped, signaling an approaching threat. A security drone, Velari design, likely part of the ship's automated defense system, hovered at the far end of the corridor. Its sensors glowed red as it detected Mara's presence. "Intruder identified," the drone announced in mechanical Velari. "Initiating neutralization protocol." "Sterling, what's happening?" Reed demanded through the comm. "Security drone," Mara gasped, her lungs burning from the contaminated air. "Taking evasive action." The drone fired a stun beam, the energy pulse narrowly missing Mara's shoulder. She ducked behind a floating storage unit, shielding the child with her body. With one arm still cradling the girl, she drew her stunner and took aim. "Friend," she whispered to the child, pointing first to herself, then to the Velari girl. "Not intruder. Friend." The drone advanced, weapons charging for another blast. Mara waited until it cleared the corner, then fired. Her stunner found its mark, overloading the drone systems in a shower of sparks. The machine dropped to the floor, inert. Mara pressed on, her vision beginning to blur from oxygen deprivation. The corridor seemed to stretch endlessly before her, the airlock a distant goal. Just as she rounded the final corner, her scanner beeped again, another life sign, deeper within the freighter. "Captain," she wheezed into her comm. "I'm picking up another signature." "Negative. Sterling, you've been exposed to contaminated air for too long. Return to the Artemis immediately." Mara hesitated, glancing down at the child in her arms, then back at the scanner. "Sir, there's another survivor, possibly another child." "That's an order. Lieutenant, you're no good to anyone if you suffocate. Return to the ship, get fresh oxygen, then we'll discuss a secondary extraction." Logic told her that Ree was right. Her lungs felt like they were filled with razor blades, and the edges of her vision were growing dark. But the thought of leaving another child alone in this failing vessel tore at her conscience. The Velari girl stirred in her arms, small fingers grasping weakly at Mara's suit. "Frn," the child attempted, the sound muffled by the oxygen mask. "What is it, little one?" Mara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The child's luminescent eyes darted toward the scanner, then back to Mara's face. "Cern," she managed. "Saren?" Mara guessed. "Is that a name? Is someone else here with you?" The child nodded weakly. Mara's resolve hardened. "Captain, the second life sign is another child. I can't leave her behind." "Sterling, I'll bring this one to the Artemis first, get fresh oxygen, then go back for the other." Ree's frustrated sigh came through the comm. "Fine, but double time it, Lieutenant." I don't like the readings I'm getting from that vessel, and there's unusual activity in the surrounding sector. Mara didn't need to be told twice. She pushed forward, each step a battle against her failing body. When she finally reached the airlock, the relief was almost overwhelming. The Artemis's pristine interior greeted her like an old friend. Dr. Alina Voss was waiting in the docking bay, medical kit at the ready. "What in the seven hells were you thinking?" she demanded, rushing forward to take the child from Mara's arms. "You could have died out there." Mara collapsed against the wall, gulping in the clean, oxygen-rich air of the Artemis. "There's another one," she gasped. "Another child. In cryostasis. I think." The girl called her Saren. Voss was already scanning the Velari child, her expression shifting from anger to professional focus. "This one's stable, but severely dehydrated. I need to get her to medical immediately." "How long before I can go back for the other?" Mara asked, forcing herself to stand, despite the protest from her oxygen-starved muscles. "You're not going anywhere," Voss stated flatly. "You've sustained significant respiratory damage from exposure to contaminated air. I'm ordering you to the medical bay." "But the other child—" "I'll send Kowalski and Zhang," Ri interrupted, appearing in the doorway. "They're suiting up now." Mara shook her head. "With all due respect, sir, I know the layout of the vessel. I can guide them to the cryo chamber faster than they can find it on their own." Ri studied her face, taking in her determined expression and the stubborn set of her jaw. "You have 15 minutes of oxygen exposure, not a second more. Dr. Voss will monitor your vitals from here, and if she says pull out, you pull out. Clear?" "Clear, sir." Within minutes, Mara was back in a fresh EVA suit, oxygen levels at maximum. The first child, Lyra, as she'd managed to communicate before being taken to medical, was stable under Dr. Voss's care. Now, Mara had to find Saren. The freighter seemed even more unstable during her second entry. Warning lights flashed in corridors that had been merely dim before, and the structural integrity alarms blared at regular intervals. Mara moved quickly, following her scanner's readings toward the ship's lower decks. She was halfway to the cryo chamber when her comm crackled with static. "Sterling, we're picking up an approaching vessel," Ri's voice warned. "Configuration matches known pirate signatures. ETA 3 minutes. Mara quickened her pace, heart pounding. "Understood. I'm almost at the cryo chamber." She descended through a hatch to the engineering level, only to find herself knee-deep in leaked coolant. The liquid sloshed around her legs, frigid even through her insulated suit. Sparking pipelines hung from the ceiling, threatening to ignite the volatile substance. Carefully, Mara waded through the hazardous environment, keeping her scanner elevated above the coolant. The cryo chamber lay just beyond the flooded section, its sealed door visible through the gloom. As she reached the door, another communication came through, this one not from the Artemis. "Attention, rescue vessel," a gravelly voice announced. "This is Captain Raxus of the Bloodhound. The derelict freighter and all its contents are now under our jurisdiction. Any personnel aboard are ordered to evacuate immediately or face lethal force." Pirates, just as Ri had feared. "Sterling, get out of there now," Ri commanded. "The pirates are docking on the port side. We need to disengage." Mara had reached the cryo chamber door, her fingers working frantically at the control panel. "Almost there, sir. Just need to retrieve the second child." The door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a small chamber dominated by a single cryopod. Inside, suspended in stasis fluid, was an older Velari girl, perhaps 12 years old. The pod's power indicators flickered ominously, suggesting imminent failure. "I've found her," Mara reported, examining the pod's controls. "She's in cryostasis, but the system's failing. I need to stabilize it before I can move her." "You don't have time," Ri insisted. "The pirates are boarding now. You need to get out while you still can. Mara's fingers flew over the pod's controls, attempting to bypass the failing power systems. I just need 2 minutes. A crash echoed from somewhere above, followed by the sound of heavy boots on metal grating. The pirates had entered the freighter. Abort mission! Sterling! Ree's voice was sharp with urgency. That's an order! Mara ignored him, focusing on the pod systems. The girl inside, Saren, remained motionless, unaware of the danger that surrounded her. If the cryopod failed completely before she could be properly revived, the results would be catastrophic. Got it, Mara muttered as the pod's indicator stabilized, shifting from red to amber. Beginning extraction sequence. The sound of approaching footsteps grew louder. Mara drew her stunner, positioning herself between the pod and the chamber entrance. As the stasis fluid began to drain from the pod, the older Velari girl stirred, her luminescent eyes flickering beneath closed lids. Come on, Mara urged, watching the extraction progress bar crawl across the pod's display. The chamber door slid open. Mara raised her stunner, only to find herself facing not 1 or 2 pirates, but 5, each armed with far more lethal weapons than her standard-issue stunner. At their center stood a towering figure, half man, half machine. Captain Raxus's reputation had not exaggerated his imposing presence. Biomechanical implants lined his jaw and extended down his neck, disappearing beneath his armor. His left eye had been replaced with a glowing red optic that whirred as it focused on Mara. Well, Raxus drawled, his voice a mechanical rasp. A rescue ranger, all alone with valuable cargo. He gestured toward the cryopod. Step aside, Lieutenant. That pod and its contents belong to us now. This is a child, Mara stated firmly, not lowering her stunner, despite the futility of resistance. A refugee, not cargo. Raxus's mechanical eye adjusted with a click. Everything has value to someone. Velari children fetch a high price in certain markets. Step aside, or I'll have my men remove you piece by piece. The extraction sequence on the pod beeped, signaling completion. Behind Mara, the lid began to lift, exposing Saren to the chamber's atmosphere. The girl's eyes opened fully, luminescent irises contracting in the sudden light. Fear registered on her features as she took in the arm standoff. Last chance, Raxus warned, raising his weapon. Step aside. Mara's mind raced. She was outnumbered, outgunned, and responsible for a defenseless child who was still weak from cryostasis. The logical choice was clear: surrender and hope for an opportunity to escape later. But surrender meant allowing these pirates to take Saren, to sell her into who knew what kind of horror. Sterling, report, Ree's voice came through her comm. Pirates have boarded. What's your status? Before Mara could respond, Raxus fired a warning shot that ricocheted off the wall beside her head. No communications, he growled. Now step away from the pod. In that moment of distraction, Mara noticed something on her scanner. A small heat signature moving through the ventilation system above the chamber. Too small to be a pirate. Too deliberate to be debris. Lyra. Somehow, the younger Velari girl had escaped medical, followed Mara back to the freighter, and was now crawling through the vents above them. Mara needed to buy time. These children are under the protection of the Artemis Rescue Division, she announced, standing her ground. By interstellar law, any attempt to impede a rescue operation is punishable by— Spare me the legal lecture, Raxus interrupted, advancing a step. The law doesn't exist out here. A small hand appeared at the edge of the ventilation grate above Raxus's head. Mara fought to keep her expression neutral, her eyes fixed on the pirate captain. Perhaps not, she conceded, but common decency does. These are children who have already lost everything. Would you take what little they have left? Raxus laughed, the sound distorted by his mechanical enhancements. Decency doesn't pay the bills, Lieutenant. Now, The ventilation grate crashed down on Raxus's head, followed immediately by a small blur of motion as Lyra dropped onto the pirate captain's shoulders. The pirates turned in confusion, weapons raised but uncertain where to aim as their leader staggered under the unexpected assault. Mara seized the opportunity. She fired her stunner at the nearest pirate, then lunged forward to grab Saren from the cryopod. The older girl was weak, barely able to stand, but conscious enough to cling to Mara's suit. "Run!" Mara shouted to Lyra, who had abandoned her perch on Raxus's shoulders and was darting between the pirate's legs, causing further chaos. Lyra responded with surprising speed, scurrying toward Mara and Saren. Together, they backed toward the chamber's rear exit, a maintenance hatch that Mara had noted during her initial scan. "Stop them!" Raxus roared, regaining his balance. His mechanical eye glowed furious red as he raised his weapon. Mara turned and fired her stunner at the control panel beside the maintenance hatch. The door slid open, revealing a narrow service corridor beyond. She pushed the children through, then fired one last shot at the chamber's overhead pipes. Coolant sprayed into the room, momentarily blinding the pirates and buying them precious seconds of escape time. The service corridor was cramped and dark, forcing them to move in single file. Mara took the lead, one hand gripping Saren's wrist, the other holding her scanner like a lifeline. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew louder, angry shouts and the clang of heavy boots on metal grating. "Sterling, report!" Ree's voice was frantic in her ear. "We've detected multiple armed hostiles aboard the freighter." "Under fire!" Mara gasped, guiding the children around a sharp corner. "2 Velari children with me. Requesting extraction at the secondary airlock?" "Negative," Ree responded. "Pirates have blocked access to both airlocks. You'll need to find another way out." Mara's heart sank. "Understood. Seeking alternate route." The service corridor opened into a larger chamber, the freighter's auxiliary control room. Mara sealed the door behind them, buying a few precious moments of safety. "Friend," Lyra said suddenly, pointing to herself, then to Mara. It was the first clear word she had spoken in English. Despite the dire circumstances, Mara couldn't help but smile. "That's right, friend." Saren, still weak from cryostasis, leaned heavily against a control panel, her luminescent eyes fixed on Mara with a mixture of fear and cautious hope. "Friend?" she asked in halting English. "Friend," Mara confirmed, squeezing the older girl's hand. "I'm going to get you both out of here." She turned to the control room's displays, searching for any possible escape route. The pirates had indeed blocked both airlocks, and their numbers were growing as more boarded from their vessel. The Artemis remained docked on the opposite side, but the path between was crawling with hostiles. "Captain," Mara called through her comm. "Is there any way you can create a diversion? Draw some of the pirates away from the central corridor?" "Working on it," Ree replied. "Stand by." Mara examined her scanner, looking for any safe passage through the freighter's maze-like interior. A ventilation shaft might work for Lyra, but Saren was too weak to crawl, and Mara was too large to fit. A sudden explosion rocked the freighter, nearly knocking them off their feet. "Diversion deployed," Ree announced grimly. "We've detonated charges near the pirates' vessel. They're scrambling to secure their ship. You have maybe 5 minutes before they regroup." "Understood. Moving now." Mara checked her oxygen levels. Still sufficient, but not infinite. She needed to get the children to the Artemis quickly, before either her air ran out or the pirates recovered from the diversion. With Saren supported between them, Mara and Lyra left the auxiliary control room and headed toward the central corridor. True to Ree's word, the pirate presence had thinned considerably, most having rushed to secure their damaged vessel. They had almost reached the central junction when Mara's scanner beeped in warning. A single, hostile signature approached from the adjoining corridor. "Hide," she whispered, guiding the children behind a stack of cargo containers. Heavy footsteps echoed in the metal corridor, growing louder as they approached. Mara drew her stunner, preparing to defend the children if necessary. A massive figure rounded the corner, one of Raxus's lieutenants. His body, more machine than man. Enhanced optics swept the corridor, pausing on the cargo containers where they hid. "I know you're there," the lieutenant called, his voice a mechanical approximation of human speech. "Come out now, and I won't have to dig you out." Mara signaled for the children to stay hidden, then stepped out from behind the containers. Stunner raised. "Just me," she said calmly. "The children are already aboard the Artemis." The lieutenant's enhanced eyes narrowed. "Lying doesn't suit you, Lieutenant. My scanners detect 3 life forms." "Worth a try," Mara shrugged, then fired her stunner directly at the lieutenant's chest. The energy pulse struck him squarely, but instead of dropping as expected, he merely staggered back a step. His biomechanical enhancements had absorbed most of the stunning effect. "Cute," he growled, raising his own weapon, a modified pulse rifle designed to incapacitate without killing. Valuable merchandise had to be delivered intact, after all. Before he could fire, a small projectile sailed over Mara's shoulder, striking the lieutenant in the face. He howled in pain as corrosive coolant, the same substance that had flooded the engineering deck, ate into his organic eye. Mara turned to see Lyra standing defiantly beside the containers, another handful of coolant-soaked debris ready to throw. "Friend," the child stated firmly, glaring at the half-blinded lieutenant. Mara didn't waste the opportunity. She charged forward, delivering a powerful kick to the lieutenant's knee joint, one of the few vulnerable points in his enhanced physiology. The joint buckled with a sickening crunch, sending the massive figure crashing to the floor. "Go!" Mara urged, grabbing both children and sprinting past the fallen lieutenant. They raced through the central corridor, the path to the Artemis's airlock now visible ahead. Just as hope began to rise in Mara's chest, a familiar mechanical voice echoed through the ship's comm system. "Attention, Rescue Ranger," Raxus announced. "You've caused me considerable inconvenience. Allow me to return the favor." A series of explosions rocked the freighter, strategically placed to cut off their route to the Artemis. Alarms blared as the ship's structural integrity warnings shifted from amber to red. "Self-destruct sequence initiated," the freighter's automated system announced. 5 minutes to core breach. Mara shouted into her comm. "Raxus has triggered the freighter's self-destruct. We're cut off from your position." "Working on it," replied, his voice tight with tension. "There's a maintenance airlock on level 3, section D. Can you reach it?" Mara checked her scanner. "Negative. The explosions have collapsed the access corridors." "Then we'll come to you. Hold your position and conserve oxygen. We're launching the extraction drones now." Mara guided the children into a relatively secure alcove, away from the worst of the structural damage. The freighter groaned around them, metal stressed beyond its tolerances. "Will we die?" Saren asked quietly, her luminescent eyes wide with fear. "No," Mara answered with more confidence than she felt. "My friends are coming for us. We just need to wait." "Pirates coming too," Lyra observed, pointing to Mara's scanner, where multiple hostile signatures were converging on their position. Mara checked her stunner's charge, nearly depleted after the encounter with the lieutenant. She had maybe 2 shots left, not enough to hold off Raxus and his crew. 4 minutes to core breach, the automated system announced dispassionately. "Sterling, status report," demanded through the comm. "Pinned down in section C7, Mara replied. "Hostiles approaching from multiple directions. The children are with me, but Saren is still weak from cryostasis. She can't move quickly." "Understood. Extraction drones are en route to your position. ETA 3 minutes. It would be close. Too close." Mara peered around the edge of the alcove, assessing their options. The corridor ahead was partially collapsed, but passable. Behind them, the sounds of approaching pirates grew louder. "We need to move," she decided, helping Saren to her feet. "The extraction point is just ahead, but we need to hurry." They emerged from the alcove, Mara supporting Saren while Lyra scouted ahead, her small size allowing her to squeeze through gaps in the debris that Mara had to carefully navigate around. The ship's internal gravity was beginning to fail, causing loose objects to drift weightlessly in the corridor. 3 minutes to core breach. They had almost reached the designated extraction point when Raxus himself appeared at the far end of the corridor, flanked by 3 of his crew. His mechanical eye glowed malevolently in the emergency lighting. "End of the line, Lieutenant," he called, raising his weapon. "Hand over the merchandise, and I might let you live long enough to escape this death trap." "They're not merchandise," Mara replied, positioning herself between the pirates and the children. "They're people, children, and they're under my protection." Raxus laughed, the sound distorted by his mechanical enhancements. "Noble sentiment, misplaced, but noble." He gestured to his men. "Take them." The pirates advanced, weapons raised. Mara fired her stunner, dropping the nearest one. But the second shot went wide as the freighter lurched violently beneath them. Her weapon was now depleted, leaving her defenseless against the remaining pirates. 2 minutes to core breach. A loud clang echoed through the corridor as something impacted the hull from outside. Hope surged through Mara as a cutting beam began to slice through the metal wall behind them. "Extraction team incoming," Ree announced through her comm. "Stand clear of the hull breach." "You heard him," Mara told the children, pulling them away from the wall. "Help is here." Raxus and his men broke into a run, determined to reach their prize before the rescue team could extract them. Mara braced herself for the coming confrontation, knowing she had little chance against their superior weapons and enhanced strength. The hull gave way with a scream of tortured metal as the Artemis's extraction drones cut through the final layer. Beyond the breach, Mara could see the sleek shape of her ship, emergency lights illuminating the void between vessels. "Go!" she shouted, lifting Lyra and pushing her toward the breach, where extraction team members in EVA suits waited to receive them. As Saren stumbled toward safety, Raxus fired a desperate shot. The energy pulse struck Mara in the shoulder, sending her crashing to the floor. Pain exploded through her body, but she forced herself to remain conscious, to ensure the children reached safety. 1 minute to core breach. Through a haze of pain, Mara saw Lyra and Saren being pulled through the breach into the waiting arms of the extraction team. Only then did she allow herself to collapse, her body no longer responding to her commands. Rough hands seized her arms, dragging her away from the breach. Raxus's mechanical face loomed over her, his expression a mixture of fury and desperation. "If I can't have the merchandise," he growled, "I'll at least have the satisfaction of watching you die with this ship." "Captain Raxus," one of his men called urgently. "We need to evacuate now. The core is going critical." Raxus hesitated, his mechanical eye shifting between Mara and the rapidly closing breach. With a frustrated snarl, he released her and turned away, following his men toward their own escape route. Mara lay on the cold metal floor, her strength depleted, her consciousness fading. She had succeeded. The children were safe. That was what mattered. 30 seconds to core breach. A figure in an EVA suit burst through the breach, moving with desperate speed. "Sterling!" Captain Ree's voice called through her fading consciousness. "Don't you dare die on my ship!" Strong arms lifted her, carrying her toward the breach. The last thing Mara saw before darkness claimed her was the freighter's interior receding as Ree pulled her through the hull breach toward the waiting Artemis. When Mara opened her eyes, the familiar ceiling of the Artemis's medical bay greeted her. The sharp sting of antiseptic filled her nostrils, and the soft beep of monitoring equipment provided a steady rhythm beside her bed. "Welcome back to the land of the living," Dr. Voss remarked, appearing at her bedside. "You gave us quite a scare, Lieutenant." Mara tried to sit up, only to be gently pushed back by the doctor's firm hand. "The children," she croaked, her throat raw and painful. "Lyra and Saren." "Are fine," Voss assured her, adjusting the flow on Mara's IV. Thanks to you. Though I still think you're the most reckless, stubborn rescue ranger I've ever had the misfortune to patch up. Despite the reprimand, there was genuine affection in the doctor's voice. Mara relaxed slightly, allowing herself to acknowledge the various aches and pains that radiated through her body. "The freighter?" she asked. "Gone," Voss replied. "Core breach destroyed it completely. Took most of the pirates with it, from what I hear. Raxus and a few others managed to escape in a shuttle. But they're long gone now." Mara nodded, relief washing over her. "How long have I been out?" 3 days. You sustained significant injuries from the energy pulse, not to mention oxygen deprivation and exposure to contaminated air. Voss checked the readings on the monitor. "You'll make a full recovery, but it'll take time." The medical bay door slid open, and Captain Rhee entered, his usually stern expression softened by what might have been concern. "Lieutenant," he greeted her. "Good to see you conscious." "Thank you, sir," Mara replied, "for coming back for me." Rhee waved away her gratitude. "You're part of my crew. I don't leave people behind." He moved closer to her bedside. "What you did out there, it was reckless, insubordinate, and in direct violation of at least 5 different protocols." Mara steeled herself for the reprimand she knew was coming. "It was also," Rhee continued, his voice softening, "one of the bravest things I've ever witnessed. Those children owe you their lives." Before Mara could respond, the medical bay door slid open again, and 2 small figures darted into the room, evading the grasp of the nurse who attempted to restrain them. "Friend!" Lyra exclaimed, rushing to Mara's bedside. The young Velari girl looked transformed from the barely conscious child Mara had first encountered. Her luminescent eyes glowed with vibrant health, and a smile stretched across her alien features. Saren followed more sedately, but her expression held the same mixture of relief and joy. "You are awake," she observed in carefully pronounced English. "We were worried." Mara felt a lump form in her throat as the children crowded around her bed. "I'm okay," she assured them. "Just needed a little rest." "You saved us," Saren stated solemnly. "Gave your heir to Lyra. Fought pirates for us." "Anyone would have done the same," Mara murmured, though she knew it wasn't true. Most would have followed protocol, prioritized their own safety, left the children to whatever fate awaited them. "Not anyone," Rhee corrected gently. "Just you, Sterling." Dr. Voss cleared her throat. "I think that's enough excitement for one day. Lieutenant Sterling needs rest. And you two," she addressed the children, "are supposed to be in the observation ward." "No," Lyra protested, her small hand gripping Mara's with surprising strength. "Stay with friend." Mara looked to Voss, silently pleading. The doctor sighed in resignation. "Fine, 10 minutes. Then all of you out." She pointed an accusing finger at Rhee. "That includes you, Captain." When they were alone, Mara studied the 2 Velari children who had so unexpectedly entered her life. "Do you have family waiting for you? Someone we can contact?" Saren's luminescent eyes dimmed slightly. "No family. Our transport was last from Colony. Pirates attacked. Everyone else, gone." The simple statement carried the weight of unimaginable loss. These children had witnessed the destruction of their entire community, their family, their world. "I'm so sorry," Mara whispered, squeezing Saren's hand. "Where we go now?" Lyra asked, her gaze direct and trusting. It was a question Mara had been avoiding. Standard protocol dictated that refugee minors be processed through the appropriate channels, handed over to Velari authorities or, failing that, placed in interspecies orphanages while their cases were reviewed. But the thought of abandoning these children to an impersonal system filled Mara with dread. "We're on course for Havenrise," Rhee informed her, answering Lyra's question. "It's a neutral refugee station orbiting Proxima 3. They'll take good care of you there." Lyra's face fell, her luminescent eyes dimming. not stay with friend. I... Mara hesitated, looking to Ree for guidance. The captain studied her face, then nodded almost imperceptibly. There are options, Lieutenant. Interspecies guardianship protocols exist for situations like this. It's not common, but not unprecedented either. Hope bloomed in Mara's chest. You mean, if you were to apply for guardianship, Ree continued carefully, I would support your petition, as would Dr. Voss, I believe. Without hesitation, Voss confirmed from the doorway, where she had been quietly observing. Though I'd have to certify you as mentally sound, which, given your recent actions, might be a stretch. Despite the teasing, Voss's expression was warm, encouraging. Mara looked at the children, Lyra with her boundless energy and quick mind, Saren with her quiet strength and protective instincts. In the span of days, they had become more than a mission, more than refugees to be rescued. They had become family. Would you like that? She asked them softly. To stay with me. Lyra's answer was immediate, her small arms wrapping around Mara in a fierce hug. Yes, stay with friend. Saren's response was more measured, her luminescent eyes studying Mara's face. You would be our new family? If you'll have me, Mara replied, emotion thick in her voice. A slow smile spread across Saren's face, transforming her solemn features. Yes, new family. 2 weeks later, the Artemis docked at Havenrise Station. The sprawling orbital structure gleamed in the light of Proxima III's sun, its modular sections extending like the petals of a massive flower. As a neutral zone established specifically for refugees and diplomatic negotiations, Havenrise represented hope for countless displaced individuals, including 2 young Velari girls. Mara stood on the observation deck, watching as the docking procedures completed. She was fully recovered from her injuries, though Dr. Voss had insisted on one final checkup before clearing her for regular duty. Lieutenant, Ree's voice called from behind her. A moment of your time. Mara turned to find the captain approaching, accompanied by a Velari diplomat in formal attire. Her heart sank. Had they come to take the children away? This is Ambassador Thelian. Ree introduced the Velari. He's been briefed on the situation with Lyra and Saren. The ambassador inclined his head in greeting, his luminescent eyes studying Mara with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. Lieutenant Sterling, he began, his voice melodious despite the formal tone. Your actions aboard the freighter were most unusual. Many of my kind would question the wisdom of placing Velari children in human care. Mara straightened her shoulders, preparing to defend her guardianship petition. With all due respect, Ambassador. However, Thelian continued, raising a hand to forestall her objection. I am not among them. Your sacrifice, giving your oxygen to save a child not of your species, speaks to a compassion that transcends cultural boundaries. Relief washed over Mara. Thank you, Ambassador. The children have been evaluated by our healers, Thelian informed her. They are physically well, considering their ordeal. Emotionally, however, they have formed a significant attachment to you. To separate them now would cause further trauma. Then you support my petition? Mara asked, hardly daring to hope. Thelian produced a datapad from within his robes. I have already approved it, pending your acceptance of certain conditions. What conditions? The children must be educated in both human and Velari customs. They must have regular contact with their cultural heritage, and they must be allowed to choose their own path when they reach maturity. Thelian's expression softened slightly. They have lost much. I would not have them lose their identity as well. I understand, Mara agreed readily. I want them to know where they come from, to be proud of their heritage. Thelian nodded, satisfied. Then it is done. The children are officially placed under your guardianship. Lieutenant Sterling, may you guide them well. As the ambassador departed, Ree turned to Mara with an uncharacteristic smile. Congratulations, Lieutenant. It seems you've expanded your crew. Thank you, sir, for everything. Ree hesitated, then added, The Artemis isn't exactly designed for family living. I've arranged for you to be transferred to Haven Rise's security division. You'll be responsible for refugee processing and protection, a position that comes with family quarters. Mara was stunned by the captain's thoughtfulness. Sir, I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep in touch, Ree replied gruffly. The Artemis will make regular stops at Haven Rise, and say you'll continue to be the same compassionate, occasionally reckless officer I've come to respect. I promise, sir. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Lyra and Saren, who had been exploring the Artemis one last time before disembarking. They rushed to Mara's side, both talking excitedly about the wonders of Haven Rise, visible through the observation windows. Is it true? Saren asked, her English improving daily. We stay with you now? Mara knelt to their level, gathering both girls into her arms. Yes, it's true. We're going to live here, on Haven Rise, together. Family, Lyra declared with satisfaction, nestling against Mara's shoulder. Family, Mara agreed, holding them close. As they prepared to disembark, Mara caught sight of her reflection in the observation window. Slung over her shoulder was the oxygen mask, the same one she had given to Lyra on the freighter. She had kept it as a reminder of that moment, of the choice that had changed all their lives. Beyond the window, Proxima III's swirling storms created a mesmerizing backdrop to the station's sleek structure. A new beginning, a new family forged in the cold depths of space through an act of sacrifice and compassion. Lyra tugged at her hand, impatient to begin their new adventure. With one last look at the Artemis, the ship that had brought them together, Mara led her new family toward their future home. Let's go, she said softly. We have a lot to look forward to. And as they walked toward the airlock, Mara knew with absolute certainty that despite the dangers they had faced and the losses they had endured, the best was yet to come. Not just for her, but for the two luminous-eyed children who had found their way into her heart through a simple act of shared breath.